Hello, tubers and tubettes. This is David in Northern California. Thanks for finding me. I just went and got a Starbucks, and I usually do that whenever I have to go to church early for my wife. She's going to be helping out at the church services, so I've got to get her there early. She has a problem with being in places on time. It's very, very frustrating. But I don't say anything. I just go with the flow. In my business, if you keep showing up to appointments, 15, 20 minutes late, people will not buy the pool from you. They just will not buy the pool. I'm a pool salesman. Been doing it for 40 years. So I call and confirm, and I'm always there early. And people like that. They take it as a sign of respect. I know today we had to pick up my wife's sister, my sister-in-law. And I know she was waiting outside, waiting for us to come up there. And I think we were probably 10 minutes late. But, I knew my wife was already frustrated with herself, so there's no reason to say anything. And I try to be positive as I can so that we don't create drama, right before church. So I've been married for 36 years, and a lot of times my brother-in-law, I think they've been married for maybe 38 years, and he always tells people 5 of them were happy. I don't know why he says that. I usually say something that sometimes I used to say, and it's almost over, and they're like, what does that mean? I'm not leaving out of this marriage alive, that's what I mean. But as men, we think that's funny. It's not really funny for the women. So how do you stay married for 36 years? Well, you do a lot of just shutting up and, really not only do you have to shut up, but you have to also cannot be saying smart ass things, It's a challenge sometimes, you really have to usually try not to get into those situations to begin with. I know over the years there probably been a couple times I thought I was going to get a divorce because, just not getting along or thinking the grass is greener, and you can get into that mindset where you just want to be free. But my most famous one that I remember was when my son was first born, and he's 33 years old. So when he was first born, we were just getting into fights all the time. And I would say most of them had to do with money and communication. But I remember I got in my car, I was going to leave, go visit a friend in Seattle area, and I was hot, and I was ready to go. And when I'm ready to go, I don't need to have a lot of stuff. I'm ready to go now. So what ended up happening is I got in my car and I drove about an hour away from where we live. And during that 30-minate drive, I kind of came back to my senses and just thought, I can't leave my son. He was very young at the time, maybe like a year. It wasn't my wife at the time because we were fighting, but it was mostly just thinking about my little son, just defenseless, and dad's not there to help him out. So I got off the exit, turned around, drove back home, didn't really say anything to my wife or anybody about it, you guys know about it the first. But it really made me understand that, in the moment you can get really upset and you want to say that. And sometimes you say things, that are hurtful that you can't unsay. They say sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never harm me. And that actually is not true, because you can say things, that can really hurt somebody to the point that they look at you and they can't get that out of their mind. Maybe they will, but it might take years to do that. So you got to be really careful about what you say, to people. And as much as you can love somebody, that's about as much as you can hate somebody. We're kind of involved because my wife is a paralegal with some friends, and she's her and her husband, who they have been estranged for 10 years or something like that, but they're going through a divorce, and she just wants to crush them. I kind of, sometimes I take the gal side, sometimes I take the man side, depends on what happened, but that's what's good about my wife. She doesn't take sides, it's her friend, so she just says it. But I like it that I can just talk to my wife clearly about it, because I think these are learning situations, so we can learn. And it's a hard thing to stay together. You have to through thick and thin, almost anything that's going to be thrown at you is going to be thrown at you, whether it's another guy or another girl, they're trying to wreck your relationship. It's a lot different nowadays, because in the old days, women didn't want to be known as breaking up a home wrecker, they used to call it. But I think nowadays it's less problematic for them. They like you, you like them, they're just gonna do it. So you as a guy, you have to really think about whether it's worth it. It's going to be, pleasurable, and it's going to be an escape. And you think that you'll be able to just put it in that box. Remember, I was saying how we tend to box everything up, and you can get away with it, forever, but it always ends up coming back. And there's always this need to want to tell them, that you were unfaithful or something like that. But my advice is never say it. Never breathe it. Well, the best thing is never do it. That way you don't have to lie. But nobody's going to be all happy that you're super honest and you're telling them about your, infidelity or something. Some things I think they should have to be taken to the grave. And don't share it with anybody. I mean, best friends, you lose friendships, and then all of a sudden they have a way to hurt you. So I think that that's a big issue, infidelity. It's one that you can almost not get over, and you'll have it, for the rest of your life. We have a situation with another relative where the husband did cheat, and I think he's been dead for 20 years, but it still bugs, my family member. They just can't get over it. And so it's so weird, because it happened so many times, so many years ago. But the way I've always looked at it, and I'll just share it with you, is that I feel that when a woman cheats on a man, she's looking for something emotional, some type of a connection with somebody that she doesn't have with her spouse, or even her boyfriend. Because men can be very distant, and so there's a big gap in this emotional thing, and she's actually dying for that. I think when men cheat, I think a lot of it doesn't mean anything, that kind of thing. It's just mostly to get your nut off, I guess they call it, or you just get that sexual tension out of you. But you have to remember that can, if you're caught, which you usually will be, then that could be a problem for you. One thing that I was told a long time ago, and I never thought about this, I can't remember if I heard it in church or if I read it or however, but a lot of the sexual aggressiveness, that men have, say for a woman, comes from our God-given want to have children. This is what drives it, and this is also with animals, is it is pleasurable, but the main reason that you're doing it is that you're trying to perpetuate the species. And so it's more of a God-given thing that you want to have a baby. Now, you may not intellectually want to have a baby, but where did this need to do that come from? It comes from this thing that we have inside of us to want to have a baby. And I've thought about that, like with porn stars and people that have they don't want to have a baby, but where does that real strong urge come from? And we associate it with men being very virile, and women being very trying to, again, make an emotional connection or something like that. But that's where it's driven from, this passion. If we didn't have it, our species would just slowly fall apart. And I think that is happening. I think it's happening through porn is one thing. Men can have a release, and so there's not a real need to want to have a personal relationship. And then I think women, sometimes they're looking at being with a man boy. It's not he looks like a man, but he really has boy-like qualities. And whether he's unstable, in his work, or he has no assets because he's kind of blown it all. And I did hear some recently about these guys that were moving to the Philippines, and they literally had nothing. Some of it is through divorce, but I think a lot of it is just through no management of their money. So they get to a certain point in life, and maybe they have a divorce, and then they want to go out with some women, American women, Western women, and they're really surprised, that the Western women have nothing to do with them. They're all gold diggers. All they care about is money. That's all they talk about. But I don't really see it like that. They're not digging for gold. They're digging for like copper. They would just like to have you have a good job, maybe own your own house, after 40, 50 years. And not one guy was actually saying how he was living in a camper. He put a camper on the back of his truck, and during the date when she asks, well, where do you live? He goes, I live in that camper right there. Well, that's a big turnoff for a woman. If you can't take care of yourself, barely, how can you take care of her? And maybe she doesn't want to live in a camper and leave all of her friends and drive away. So then they get really down on Western women, and they go to a place where it's a lot of poverty. And the escape of poverty is to marry a Western man, even if he only has his Social Security. That's at least something coming in every month, because they don't have Social Security in the Philippines, and they don't have unemployment insurance. So that's why they're so strong in their family, because you have to rely on family members, to make it through really, really tough times. And I mean, that goes right back to economics. It's an economics thing. So I think it's always weird, and maybe women are not saying it correctly, but I don't think it's necessarily that they're digging for gold. I think that sometimes they're just digging for copper. They just want you to have a job, and they're not going to have to support you. But there are a lot of man boys out there that they look good on paper, but they're just seriously in debt or owe taxes or things like that. And you think that what they're portraying is what they really are, but in reality, they're in very, very dire needs. It's not unusual for people to say that they got married to somebody and then they found out they had a lot of credit cards, a lot of credit problems, a lot of things. And so that puts additional stress on your relationship. So you have to be good at selling. You have to have some type of a career, some type of job. And when you're in your 60s and you can't work anymore for physical reasons, or you lose your job and can't find another job, then you're probably not as marketable. So these are just my thoughts, my opinions. Maybe you're in that situation and you think, oh, Dave, you're full of crap, but I've been married for 36 years, and I know how important money is, in a relationship. And that's my personal opinion, so please no comments on that. That's just how I feel. And I think if you think about it long enough, you're going to realize that does make sense. Thank you much, and have a great day. Thank you for finding me, and I hope you have a wonderful day.